My name is Liz Domingue, and I'm a naturalist, and I live in Walland, Tennessee, and I do a lot of hikes. I'm a guide, and so I offer a lot of guided hikes and walks in Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and I do a lot regionally. I also do trips around the United States. You can find out more information on my website. It's justgetoutdoors.com, and my telephone number is 865-977-HIKE, which is 4453. That's an interesting thing because she said they tweet with a Boston accent. Actually, birds have accents. Oh. Birds have they also have dialects. So a chickadee, let's say, well, we can't use chickadees because they're separate north and south. But song sparrow, a lot of work was done on song sparrows. A song sparrow in Virginia does not sound like a song sparrow in New York State or one in Florida. They have accents just like we do. It just depends on where they're from. And song sparrows don't care.
And they don't what?
They don't care that everybody has a different accent. Okay, rhododendrons. So Catawba is a high elevation rhododendron, and also Carolina, which you see. We won't see Carolina rhododendron today, but if you go up on Charlie's Bunyan and some other places, they have the same color flower, but they're smaller. The flower is smaller and the leaf is smaller. Okay? So those three species, Catawba, Carolina, and then the rose bay. And the rose bays look like they've got a lot of blooms on them. And this yellow birch, and smell where I scratch it, it should smell like wintergreen.
Oh, it certainly does, right there.
As long as it's not poison ivy, which he loves.
Here, you can pass that down. People can. Here, I'll pass this up here. And it looks
always
like
cautious because poison ivy just loves me.
Oh,
I can't
it smells
tell the difference.
wonderful. Oh, yeah. Yellow birch.
Since we're all here, come on down. I'll just tell you about that tree real quick.
Liz, will you point out anything that's edible if you see something? I don't know.
Lots of blueberries, high bush blueberry, lots of high bush blueberry. Yellow birch, there are two of our, well, there's a small plant called wintergreen. Some people call it tea berry, like the tea berry gum. Some of you may remember that. All of our oil of wintergreen was taken from that little plant. It grows about this tall.
Huh.
Then they found that yellow birch and sweet birch, which used to be called black birch, I don't know if any of you know it by that name, have wintergreen in them. And you can get a lot more from, it's just under the bark, from birch trees than you can that little plant. So all of the oil of wintergreen for flavorings and scents and everything was taken from these trees, and until they made it synthetically. So, and you know, the stories I've read, people used to sometimes, early settlers would take off a branch and chew the end and use it like a toothbrush. Minty fresh. This,
That's the blueberry thing.
this is, yeah, and this is its bloom. That's blooming right there. It's called Japanese lantern, but it's one of the blueberries. In fact.
And everything's open game, so everything's open game. You can get whatever you want.
She's getting a salamander or something underneath the spring. Underneath the wood.
Salamander.
Just do you hear that bird? It's two birds. One is kind of. That's a red-breasted nuthatch, and this is a winter wren.
Yeah, that one, the first one had really made a lot of noise.
That's winter wren. So those two birds are two of the birds that do what's called vertical migration. It's pretty cool. They go down in the wintertime. They go to lower elevations, and then they come up here to breed, to lay their eggs and nest. So several bird species do that. So I see them at my feeders. Well, I don't see the winter wren at my feeder, but I see them around my house, and I see the red-breasted nuthatch. Otherwise, we just will have the white-breasted nuthatch, and that's a red squirrel. Another species you see here. It did that kind of chatter.
A red squirrel?
A red squirrel. It's a small squirrel, like that big without its tail. And it is another species. All these species are northern kind of species. That after, you know, we had the glacial periods, but we didn't have, you can come on through. So even though the glacial ice sheets did not come this far south, the climate was a lot colder. And so when the last ones receded, those species that were more adapted to cold temperatures stayed at the high elevations. That's a really neat thing. That's why we have so much diversity in such really a relatively small area. That's what the Smokies is known for, diversity. And so birds, amphibians, whatever it may be, they stayed at the high elevations, and those that were more adapted to warmer temperatures are at the mid to low elevations. So it's kind of cool.
This, when you mentioned vertical migration, some of these birds, what is their, if you will, lateral movement in all of that? Do they go hundreds of miles or just to the base of where they are?
Those here basically go up and down the mountains. I don't think they do much lateral movement. They may do some, but I don't know, you know, how much. But we also get migrants. So the juncos you see at your feeders in the wintertime here will be some that are from, because they're another one that does vertical migration. There'll be some from the high elevations of the Smokies, but there'll also be some from the northeast, because they migrate, you know, up and down. I mean, north and south.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a flower here when you get a chance. It's called wood sorrel. We've been seeing it all along. It's white with red stripes and a yellow center. It's like a flower within a flower. It's really pretty. And I have 2 salamanders in this bag. I have them in the bag because that way not everybody touches them. It's less stressful for them. And they're both what are called dusky with a K salamanders. The darker one has to be an imitator without the orange cheeks. They don't all have orange cheeks. And the bright kind of orangey one is a pygmy salamander. The neat thing is, and I'll pass this so everybody can see, they're both about the same size. The pygmy, which is the orangey one, is an adult. The other one is not. It's a juvenile, which is kind of fun. And the pygmy is, they're both high elevation, although imitator you can find at mid elevation too. And pygmy salamander is our smallest salamander that we have here. And sometimes if you can see it, it's a little hard. They don't like to be turned upside down. But they're underneath sometimes you can see like a gold kind of coloring, a coppery coloring. Excuse me. So anyway, why don't we, I guess well, the end is shorter here. We'll start here and we'll pass it up. You to get a look. So, what do salamanders eat? Anybody know? Are they carnivores, omnivores, or herbivores?
Eat worms.
I have an omni.
Carnivores.
Carnivore.
No clue. I would guess.
No clue.
They're carnivores. Actually, from the time they're born to the time they leave this earth, they eat other living things. And it all depends on their size. Salamanders, our biggest salamander is the hellbender, which can go to 2.5 feet. Yeah. So they'd eat some pretty large things. And you can imagine this pygmy and imagine its babies, how small they are. And you find some really tiny salamanders in creeks sometimes. They are a really important link between the very, very tiny critters in the leaf litter, like springtails and other little invertebrates, and the larger world, because a lot of things eat salamanders. That's why there's so many of them, you know. So.
And do they lay eggs? Are they terrestrial? Do they lay eggs under the logs or in water?
These two will go back to some kind of moist place. Imitator especially, but we have quite a few salamanders here that actually do not go to water. They lay their eggs under a log or a rock. The Jordan's red cheek, you know, the one at the park, it's kind of the park mascot. That one is that way. There's quite a few actually, which is really neat. There's always exceptions in nature. That's what makes it so fun. And the other thing about salamanders is they breathe through their skin. That's another reason why I don't like to handle them very much and don't want other people handling them, because you have to have really clean hands. If you put bug spray on your hands, so think about it, oxygen and carbon dioxide are going across their skin, right? If you have bug spray on your hands, that's a poison. It'll go right into their bloodstream and probably will kill them or make them really ill. Or perfumes or, you know, lotions, whatever. And so you really want to have clean hands if you're going to handle them at all. And the other neat thing is we have 5 families here. These 2 are from the largest family, the Plethodon. And they have become so efficient at breathing through their skin that they are actually a vertebrate without lungs. They are lungless salamanders. Wow. Which, I know, that's what I think. Wow. It's pretty amazing. A vertebrate without lungs. Yeah. This is a lily, and it's one of the Clinton's lilies, named after DeWitt Clinton, who was a New York mayor. He lived back in the mid 1800s to 1900s, and they named the flowers after him. There are 2 species. This is the high elevation one. The flower is kind of an off yellow, and it's called blue bead lily. It has a beautiful blue berry.
When does it bloom?
It blooms.
It's done.
It's done.
Yeah.
It bloomed probably last
It's a
month.
spring one.
Yeah.
Okay. Because we saw some green berries on ones
Yeah,
further down,
and
so
by
they just
the-
haven't turned blue yet.
Right, that'll be later in the summer.
Okay.
And it's a really neat
food
blue.
source too for the...
I don't know who eats them. Somebody must. I don't know who.
Who did they name that after?
What are those?
His name is DeWitt Clinton.
Oh, okay.
He was a mayor of New York years ago. He lived in the mid 1800s to 1900s, and he was very much a naturalist type, and so they named. So there are 2 species. This is the high elevation species. Has an off yellow flower, kind of a dull yellow. It's called blue bead lily because it has beautiful blue berries on it. And the other one is at the lower elevations. So this one you'll find in Minnesota, New York, and all kinds of places in the northeast or east of here, north of here. The one at lower elevations is called speckled wood lily. It's white with purple little speckles. So,
The fruit is or the leaf?
The flower.
the flower.
The flower.
And the fruit is black. Okay. And that is lycopodium or club moss. This spiky thing, ground cedar, ground pine, creeping pine, creeping cedar, lots of names for it. A really primitive
Just
plant.
reminds you of cedar.
This here is different. This is moss. That's a little different. This is the club moss here. They're very different. Club moss is their own group. Very primitive plant. There's several different species, and they're supposedly the same as they were. Hello. When dinosaurs were here, they were just a lot bigger then, but they haven't changed much. It's this little spiky. And they call them. Some people call them running cedar or running pine because usually they're attached and they come off in runners. So while we're standing here, you can look at the difference between spruce and fir, or feel it. Spruce is really spiky when you grab it. Spiky spruce. And fir is soft, right? So here's a nice fir right here. You can get to it without stepping on the ferns. And it smells really good.
Spiky spruce.
Yeah, fir. Fuzzy fir? Furry fir? I don't know. And fir is usually, if you turn it over, the needles kind of have white on the bottom. So you can even tell it from a distance if you see a tree if it has a whitish cast to it. It's a fir.
Yeah.
And their limbs are different the way they droop. But anyway, they're flatter. They kind of have flatter needles, a little bit longer. Spruce is not. They're more around the whole stem, and they really are spiky.
Yep.
Okay. There's your red squirrel. See this? See that? This is a really neat thing I'm going to show you, but since I saw it while we're here. See that little tiny thing that looks like an egg on my finger? It's a little foam packet.
I've seen some of those.
If, you know, there's a little fly called a dance fly. And the males carry this around. They kind of do this. They look like they're dancing. And there are quite a few species of dance fly. And what they do is, in several species, they wrap up a food packet, like probably another little insect, for the female. And he gives this to her, and while she's opening it and eating, they mate. But this one is empty. This species gives an empty promise. It's an interesting strategy, isn't it? Hey, you know, everybody has their own way, I guess.
Now, when they eat it, do they eat the entire thing?
No, she'll open it.
just the
By the time she
inside?
opens it, he's mated with her. She's like, dang. So this is Andrew's, bald, but we're just at the very edge of it. So what I want to do is we'll walk out there where it really opens up. Several years ago now, I talked about the various theories, and some of them we know are true. One thing is that, one of the theories is that, you know, when dinosaurs were here, there were always dinosaurs that were grazers. Right?
That were what? Great.
That were grazers that could keep a place like this open. You know, how did they originate? Well, fire is one thought, natural fires. We know that native peoples, even before Cherokee, one of the things, if you look, you know, if you spend any time in the Smokies, you know, there are a lot of trees. It's really hard to see anywhere. And so one of the things we know that was done was they burn off mountaintops sometimes for a couple of reasons. One, for being able to see far, and also because it attracts wildlife. These kinds of grassy balds in particular attract deer, rabbit, things like that. So that would be a good place to hunt. And there are two kinds of balds in the Smoky. Well, not just the Smokies, but there are two kinds of balds, grassy balds and heath balds. Heath balds are those places, you know, a bald is supposed to be a treeless area. Obviously it doesn't stay treeless, especially grassy balds. They will grow back in if they're not kept open. The heath balds are a little bit different story.
Oh, look at the
Dogs coming in.
fog. Wow, that's kind of cool.
Heath balds consist of plants in the heath family: rhododendrons, laurels, galax, wintergreen. You know, there's all kinds of plants that are in that heath family. Sand myrtle's another one. And once they take over an area, stuff grows really tightly. It's hard to get anything else to grow in there. The soil becomes more acidic. So once they become a bald as a heath bald, it pretty much remains a heath bald. Every now and then you see a pin cherry or a red maple or something like that, but they're usually small. But the grassy balds are the real mystery. You know, some of them we don't know how they originated. And fire is a good reason. Natural fire, and then native peoples, and then the idea about that grazing dinosaurs would have kept it open. We also know that we used to have woods bison and elk here. They all lived here naturally until they were hunted out of existence. And so they would definitely have, you know, elk migrate. That's what they do. They move up and down in the west. And that's what the ones that they reintroduced here are doing the same thing. They're moving up into the higher elevations. And the hope is that they're going to come up to find these grassy balds and help maintain them. You know, that would be nice.
Excellent.
And then early settlers expanded these balds and drove their cattle up here in the spring. And that was what I was talking about at the beginning. Anders Thompson, there's Gregory's bald, there's quite a few balds. Spence Field, there's quite a few in the Smokies. And actually, it's a southern Appalachian thing. It doesn't happen elsewhere. Balds are not; they don't exist in other parts of the Appalachians. So I guess that's a mystery in one way. I don't know why that's true. But we have tree line further north, but we don't have grassy balds. So, and now, you know, the Park Service keeps this one and Gregory's open. So, you know, all or many of those may be true. We know several of them are. The dinosaur one, I don't know, but sounds logical.
How do they keep it down, with weed whackers? Or?
No, I think they do it all by hand. scythes and stuff. Yeah, I don't think they, and probably clippers, things like that. I don't think they bring anything motorized, axes, or whatever.
This one's cut down.
Yeah, yeah. There are more azaleas down this way, so I will go down that way if people want to follow, or you can meander at your own pace, whatever you want to do. But there are definitely more as you go that way and that way. So, and there'll be some on your right as well.
And there's two shades.
And they're really different shades. So look at the different shades. My name is Liz Domingue, and I'm a naturalist, and I live in Walland, Tennessee, and I do a lot of hikes. I'm a guide, and so I offer a lot of guided hikes and walks in Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and I do a lot regionally. I also do trips around the United States. You can find out more information on my website. It's justgetoutdoors.com, and my telephone number is 865-977-HIKE, which is 4453. And I do a lot of naturalist interpretation. I do a lot of custom hikes and walks, so that if people want to bring their families or their individual or friends or whatever it may be, you want to get out, I'm there. So I teach classes at John Campbell Folk School, and University of Tennessee has a field school. I teach nature photography, and I teach introductory backpacking, and I do salamander classes and frog classes and all kinds of fun stuff.